We'll be getting started here in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to let other folks join today's presentation. Just wanted to flag for folks who are joining that we are going to be recording this training, and we are doing this in a meeting format, so that way we are able to do breakout rooms. So just know that you should be joining in on mute. There may be times where we ask people to take themselves off of mute, but just keep yourself muted otherwise, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. As folks are getting settled in, go ahead and drop in your name in the chat, where you're tuning in from, if you're affiliated with an org, your pronouns, and anything else you'd like to share today before we drop into those breakout rooms. And again, just thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, welcome folks. For those who are just joining, we're just gonna wait a couple of more minutes to give others an opportunity to join a meeting today. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we are going to be recording this session, so that way folks who were not able to make it are able to rewatch at a later time. But in the meantime, feel free to drop in your name in the chat, your pronouns, if you are affiliated with an organization, and where you are tuning in from while we wait to get situated. And thank you so much to Gabrielle, Maria, and Daniel for just sharing some information in the chat. I'm glad that you're here with us. And again, just for folks who are tuning in, if you want to drop in your name, pronouns, affiliation, or location where you're tuning in from in the chat, that'd be great. We're going to go ahead and get started here in a couple of seconds. Thanks for joining us, Diana and Sarah. Good to see you here. So we'll be going ahead and getting started. So just welcome so much. Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today during this afternoon activist training session. We're very close to election day, so as we put these on, just take the information as we present it to you, and use it with your own advocacy efforts in your community. A reminder for folks that we are recording this session, so that way others who were not able to join can tune in and watch at a later time. And we really hope that the content that we'll be covering during this session will empower you to spread the word about Prop 17 and to participate in the election. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and just make sure you are on mute. And we'll go ahead and get started with today. So today's training is being brought to you by myself, Daisy Chavez with Initiate Justice. We'll also be hearing from Jose Grano Gonzalez, which is a communications fellow with the Yes on Prop 17 campaign. We'll also be hearing from Luis Ojeda from the ACLU of Northern California, Brittany Stonecipher with the ACLU of California, and Brett Shears with Vote Allies. So just to give you an idea of what we'll be covering during today's session, we'll be going over some community building, which is where we are going to be breaking out into small groups so that you can connect with each other. And at the end, we're going to be doing this as well. Just give me 1 second. And so this is an opportunity where you can talk to others about what you learned, as well as how you can turn that into action. We'll also be giving you an introduction to the Yes on Prop 17 campaign to tell you more about what it is, and who's behind it. And then we'll do a deep dive into the top line messages and talking points that you can use as you speak about Prop 17 to others in your community. We'll be having a guest speaker today, which is Assemblymember David Chu, who will be talking about the importance of supporting Prop 17. As I said, we are just a couple of weeks away from Election Day, so we really just want to express the need for us to be able to pass this this proposition. That way we can, be in line with others who have already done this type of re-enfranchisement for folks who are have experienced felony disenfranchisement. And then towards the end, we'll be hearing about ways that you can support the campaign. We're actually going to be showing a list of action items that you can take and use yourself and with others in your community. And we'll also be doing a deep dive on how you can complete and return your ballot, because that is something that will be sent out in the next week to all registered voters. So just make sure you are registered. If you haven't already done so, check and online with the Secretary of State. We'll be talking about that later during that section. And finally, we'll be going over some of the resources that you can access to support the campaign, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So just a little overview of what we will be covering during today's training. So now we're just going to go over some community agreements before we dive into these breakout sessions. We want to make sure that folks keep in mind to use people-centered language or person-centered language. And this is just basically language that we use to humanize folks instead of using dehumanizing words. So for example, instead of using the word inmate or prisoner, instead of saying something like an incarcerated person, because being incarcerated doesn't define that person, they're still a human being despite their situation. Same with the word parolee. That you can use like a person who has returned home or a person who's on parole. So just try to make sure that you use people-centered language when talking about folks. We also want to make sure that you make space, take space, which also means take a step back or step up. And this means that, you give others a chance to participate in your breakout sessions, or when we do Q&A, just make sure that you leave space for others to be able to also chime in and give thoughts and input as we discuss, what we're going to be talking about today. We also want to make sure that we just give room for just one person to speak at a time. With Zoom, sometimes it can be hard to hear folks if you're talking over one another. So just be respectful of giving the opportunity to the person who's on the speaking floor before chiming in. We also want to make sure that you have mindful listening. So make sure that you are actively listening to people as they are speaking. We're here to try to get the most out of the information that's being presented today. And lastly, just assume best intentions. So make sure that you're assuming that we are making the best intentions, even if we make a mistake about something. So if there's anything else that folks want to add to these community agreements, make sure that you add that in the chat. And so we'll be able to incorporate that in some of our future trainings. But I think without further ado, we'll go ahead and break out into our breakout sessions. And you'll just go ahead and do a quick introduction, name, organization, pronoun, and city if you haven't done that already. What brought you to this training? And with ballots being mailed out in the upcoming week to all registered voters, what are some ways that you are encouraging others to do early voting? So Brett, if you could break us out into these small sessions, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, Jose.
Hi, Brendan. How are you?
Good.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome back, everybody. How'd it go? Everyone get some questions in, get some FaceTime in. Daisy, I don't know if you saw, the assemblyman joined us. He's here now. Are we ready to hand it over to the next speaker?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Assemblymember Chu, for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started on now with the presentation for today. So I will pass it over to Jose, our communications fellow for Prop 17, who will be talking about what it is and just give folks a brief overview of the campaign. So take it away, Jose.
Thank you, Daisy. What is Prop 17? So on November 3rd, California will have a statewide ballot where people will have the opportunity to vote for restoring the rights to Californians immediately who are immediately upon release from prison. So as of now, people who are on parole do not have the right to vote, regardless of them having a job, having paying taxes, and taking care of their family. So this amends the state constitution as far as what has been in law, amends the state constitution to eliminate disenfranchisement for people on parole, formerly known as ACA 6. Prop 17 does not affect voting rights for people in prison or affect any criminal sentencing laws, and it only affects California. Who's behind it? Yes, on Prop 17, it's pre the vote. So we have a number of organizations that are, I'm sorry, my internet is kind of messed up, that are behind this. ACLU is one, ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, the Brennan Center for Justice, Initiate Justice, LWV, Mi Familia Vota, Vote Allies, WP4BL, Voting Rights for LAB Action. I think that's it for me, and passing it over to Luis with top line messages.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jose. So obviously, as you all are aware, obviously the election is coming up very closely, and I'm sure you all are having tons of conversations with family and friends about it. And so we want to start by going over some of the top line messaging for the campaign, so that we can help you as you're speaking to others about Prop 17 and why it's so important. So a few things. Prop 17 will allow 50,000 Californians who are returning home from prison to reintegrate into society after they've finished their prison term by restoring their right to vote. So that's really huge, right? That it's 50,000 Californians who currently don't have that right. Additionally, it's going to help combat voter suppression among Black and Brown communities who are over-policed and subject to systemic inequalities within our criminal legal system. And it'll make our community safer as voting and civic engagement reduces the likelihood that people will be rearrested. Additionally, it's going to give Californians who have completed their prison sentence, who are working, raising families, and paying taxes, a say in the policies and representatives who affect their lives. And then lastly, it's going to make democracy fairer, more inclusive, and in line with other progressive states. So again, it's super important, and we're so grateful for you all to be here. And again, this is some top-line messaging for how you can talk about Prop 17. And so now I'm going to introduce our featured speaker for the day, Assemblymember David Chu. So we're very grateful that he took the time to be here to speak with us today. He represents District 17, which covers the east portion of San Francisco, first elected in 2016 and has been re-elected ever since. And he was a huge supporter of ACA 6 and now Prop 17. So very thankful to you, David, for being here. And I'll turn it over to you to speak to us now. Thank you.
Right on. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Really appreciate you guys being part of this campaign to help free the vote. I can tell you, as someone who was honored to help support putting this on the ballot, this was a hard road. My colleague, Kevin McCarty, who represents Sacramento, he was the author of this bill. This is not a bill that passed quickly. It was basically a fight over the last couple of years. The bill got stalled. And we were able to get it to the finish line. But the finish line for us means giving it to the voters. Ultimately, the voters have to change this in our state law in order for it to happen. So I'm excited about this for a number of reasons. I'm a former civil rights attorney, and I should mention a righteous but very long fight that I was engaged in for many, many years was in San Francisco. We finally, a couple years ago, passed a local ballot measure to allow undocumented parents of kids in our public schools to vote. It was a 12-year fight. I first was the campaign manager on it before I became an elected official in 2004. We lost by 1%. 6 years later, we put it back on the ballot. At that point, I was serving on the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. We lost for a second time. But then in 2016, we put it on a third time and we got it done. And this is one of these movement fights. Anything around voting, is long and hard fought because frankly, there are very invested interests in the status quo that don't want to see an expansion of voting. For me, I just believe that you can't have a legitimately elected government if there are serious pockets of our community who've been excluded from being able to participate in the democracy. And the reality is 3 out of 4 men who are leaving California prisons are from communities of color. And that fundamentally means that there's an enormous bias when it comes to who is being excluded. I will also tell you that from a law enforcement and a criminal justice fairness standpoint, this is also a smart thing. Although it's a little counterintuitive, and I'll explain why. So I'm a former criminal prosecutor. I will admit I'm not one today, in part because I got a little tired of all the work that went into what seemed like an endless revolving door of putting Black and brown young men into our prisons. But one of the things that we know is that when folks are coming out of the criminal justice system, if they are a valued part of our community, they are much more likely to leave their former life behind. There's a lot of studies that show that that's exactly the case. You give individuals civic responsibilities, civic obligations, that actually makes all of us safer. There are associations of folks that work with parolees, the American Probation and Parole Association, the Association of Paroling Authorities, that support automatically restoring voting rights because they know how important it is to engage folks. On the flip side, if folks are returning home after having spent time in the system and we are denying them voting rights, it is literally working against our goals of trying to bring people and bring them back into the fold of our society. And the flip side of that is when we restore voting rights, we give folks the opportunity to think of what kind of impact they want to have on society. So from a public safety standpoint, from a constitutional standpoint, from a democratic standpoint, this is why we need to do it. And this is where all of you come in, because we have a really crowded ballot in the next 32 days. We have a lot of crazy things on the ballot, including a lunatic of a president who is up for re-election. And we need to make sure that voters understand that this measure is important and we've got to free the vote. There are at least 12 state ballot measures. And then if you live in like a city like mine, San Francisco, you'll likely have another 10 or 12 or 15 ballot measures in addition to other local ballot measures that may be on the ballot. Let me also just mention while I'm at it, there are two other ballot measures that I care very passionately about on this ballot. There's another state ballot measure that would reduce the age at which folks can vote. So in addition to allowing a whole subset of mostly men of color who are transitioning back into our community vote with this measure, we hope to also be allowed to vote, to allow 17-year-olds who will become 18 by the time of a general election to be able to vote in a previous primary election. And then I'll also mention there's another, I had a former colleague at the DA's office who has been known to say the phrase, justice is on the ballot. I was coworkers with Kamala Harris back in the day before she had her meteoric rise to now be on the Democratic ticket to be our next vice president. But justice is on the ballot, not just for free the vote, not just for allowing 17-year-olds to vote, but we are also trying to overturn the ban against affirmative action. And as a civil rights attorney, I can just tell you how harmful that has been for so many communities of color. So when I'm out in the community, I talk about all of these and basically say, there was a moment in the 1960s where society rose up, took to the streets, and while racist white supremacists will say it was civil unrest, I think the rest of us would say that was the civil rights movement. That was what Dr. King cared about. That's the moment we are in right now. And we have an opportunity at the ballot box to push to expand voting rights, expand civil rights, and really move our communities of diversity forward. And I just want to thank you guys for being part of it. I think that's all I got to say right now, unless anyone has questions.
Thanks so much for speaking to our group today, Assemblymember Chu. If folks have any questions for Assemblymember Chu, go ahead and drop them in the chat before we move on to the next slide of the presentation. But we really appreciate you dropping some information for folks who are tuning in to learn more about the campaign and just for joining us today on your Friday afternoon.
It's all good. I do have one question. I kind of feel like we should take a Zoom photo so I can promote it and put out the yes on Prop 17 message, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that'd be great. So for folks who want to turn on their video, let's go ahead and take a photo on the count of three. Whenever you're ready, Assemblymember Chu.
So I'm going to ask everyone. I'm going to be vain and take off my glasses. Of course, I'm trying to find my thing. So are we, oh shoot, hold on.
You have it on the right setting, the, what do you call it? Tile setting?
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Hold on.
I think I can do it. Is that did that change anything? No.
You got it? Do you want to do it and then email me?
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Say Prop 17, everybody.
Prop 17.
Scene.
All right. Got it.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you. Any
you.
questions?
Thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and get us back onto the presentation. Our next presenter will be Brittany Stonecipher with the ACLU, who will be covering ways to support Prop 17.
Thank you so much, Daisy. And thank you again to Assemblymember Chu for speaking on today's presentation. We really, really appreciate you making the time and know how busy you are. So to get us started, I want to give an overview of different ways that you can support Prop 17. If you've been to previous trainings before, you've seen some of these. And all of these are available pretty much through our website, which we'll talk about in the resources section. And then I'm going to do a deeper dive into how to cast your ballot and to make sure that your friends are casting their ballot in favor of Prop 17, but also to complete everything from the top to the bottom of the ballot if you can. Because as Assemblymember Chu said, justice is on the ballot. And that includes all of the races, local to federal. So the first thing, as I was mentioning, that you can do, and most important thing, is if you can vote, if you're eligible to vote, and you're a California voter, make sure that you please cast your ballot and do it early if you can. Other ways that you can support the Prop 17 campaign include donating to the campaign. So if you go to yeson17.vote, you can find a link right on our homepage that says donate now. All donations are very much appreciated and make a difference. You can follow us on social media if you aren't already. We're on Instagram and Facebook as YesOnProp17, and we're on Twitter as FreeTheVoteCA. You can find links to those on our website as well. And you can also become a fundraising captain. So we've talked about this in more detail on a previous training. But when you go and sign up for our email list on our website on the Take Action page, you can also select a couple of buttons there that say that you're interested in being either a fundraising captain or a social media ambassador. And what that means is that you're just taking on a little bit more of an active role in letting people know about the campaign or helping to bring resources to the campaign. So fundraising captain basically means you'll host a quick Zoom event with your friends, so maybe a game night or a ballots and bubbles party, which I'll talk about more later on. And you use that as an opportunity to raise money for the campaign. We would set you up with your own fundraising link, and we'll send you information about how to do that if you sign up through our website. You could also become a social media ambassador. We have quite a few people who have now signed up to be social media ambassadors, which is really, really appreciated. And in addition to just sharing our regular content, which we invite everyone to do, if you sign up to be a social media ambassador, we'll send you periodic emails, I think they're once a week, with additional things that you can do to engage on social media. So we recently did a campaign to encourage people to take a photo with a Yes on 17 sign, photo of themselves, and share it on social media and tag us. So that was an example of something our social media ambassadors did. Another thing you can do to support Prop 17 is to endorse. So if you go again to our website, yeson17.vote, there's a series of pages showing how many people have endorsed Prop 17, ranging from elected representatives like Assemblymember Chu, federal elected representatives, community organizations, faith groups, public safety groups, faith groups, political associations, all kinds of endorsers for Prop 17. So if you sign up on our website, you can endorse the campaign either as an individual, and we'll add your name to our website, or if you have an organization or your job or your agency, your community group, your church, they can endorse Prop 17 as well. So you can endorse either as an organization or an individual through our website. Another thing you can do to support Prop 17 is calling or texting 5 friends. You can do that using our sample phone script, which is on our website, and that Daisy just linked in the chat. If you've come to previous trainings before, you've heard Miss Betty describe 5 on Friday, which was her favorite way to get involved. So that means reaching out to 5 people every Friday and letting them know about Prop 17. And another thing you can do is you can join this training, which we very much appreciate. And you can join our next training, which is going to be on October 16th, and invite your friends if they didn't join you this time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Hold on a second. My internet went down again. So one quick second.
No worries.
Want me to try jumping in there, Daisy? If so, I should be okay.
Yeah, if you could do this one, that would be great.
Yeah. Hop in there. All right. No, you guys, I don't know if you can see the breakout stuff, but, oops, sorry.
Where,
Which slide is it, Brittany?
Go back a little. One more. That's it. Perfect. Thank you so much. As I mentioned before, the biggest thing that you can do is to vote this November if you are eligible and you're a California voter. But the first step to voting is making sure that you're registered to vote. And it's important to make sure that you do that as soon as possible for a few reasons. And even if you think that you are already registered to vote in California, it's important that you just go ahead and check your voter registration right now, because it could be that your registration has become inactive, or you maybe need to update your registration. So when do you need to register or re-register in California? If you've never voted before in California, you need to register. Or if you haven't voted in a few years. So I said 4+ years, and this is because if you haven't voted for a period of time and you've gotten an election mailer and it bounced back to the elections office, usually because you moved, it could be that the elections office has moved you to the inactive voter list. And if you are on the inactive voter list, you can still show up in person vote on election day, but it means that you won't be getting any election mail and you won't be getting your ballot in the mail if you're an inactive voter. So if you haven't voted in a while, it's a good idea to just go ahead and go and check your voter registration and make sure that it's current. And that'll go ahead and make you an active voter and make sure that you're getting all election related mail. You also need to re-register if you have moved since the last time you voted. If you have moved within the county, you can still vote within the county. It just is best, again, you won't be getting your elections mail if you don't have your current mailing address on file. But if you've moved anywhere, if you've moved within the county, if you've moved to a different county since the last time you voted, you need to make sure that your voter registration is up to date. If you have changed your name or your political party, so political party is not as important for the general election as it is for the primary election, but it refers to the type of ballot that you'll get during your primary election. But if you've changed your name, you definitely need to make sure that you re-register. If you have recently regained the right to vote, so if you were, for instance, disenfranchised because you were on parole or because you had been in prison, you need to go ahead and re-register once you complete your parole. So your right is automatically restored once that parole is finished in California, but you still need to re-register. So I just want to take an opportunity to say congratulations to Ms. Betty, who I mentioned a minute ago. She presented a few activist trainings ago, and she's recently been discharged from parole. So she is going to be in the class of people who is re-registering before the November election, which is super exciting for her. So those are all the situations where you need to re-register. And again, we just encourage you, no matter what, to take a minute to check your registration. It only really takes a couple of minutes, and you can do it at registertovoteca.gov. Same link if you want to register for the first time or check your registration. So how and when is it important to register to vote? Again, we recommend doing it as soon as possible, but there are certain deadlines in California. The first is what we would call the administrative deadline, and that is 15 days before Election Day. It's October 19th this year. And what that means is that's the last day that you can register online by submitting a paper form to your local elections office, or getting information to register by the phone. After that, you need to go in person to register. So if you miss that 15-day deadline, again, recommended to do it as soon as possible. But if you miss that 15-day deadline for whatever reason, you still have the right to go in person to any polling place or vote center in your county and to register to vote. Locations will vary depending on what county you're in. And you can register and vote on the same day between October 20th and Election Day. Just a couple other points before we move on. You don't need an ID to register to vote in California, but we would recommend putting in your social security number or driver's license or ID number when you're registering, because if you don't provide those, federal law says that you have to share some form of ID before you vote. So if you're voting by mail, that can be kind of tricky. So if you have a social security number or a driver's license or ID number and you're registering online, strongly recommend that you provide those numbers. Also wanted to note that unhoused people absolutely have the right to vote in California. So just the fact that you don't have a home doesn't mean that you don't have the right to vote. So you just need to make sure that you put a location that describes where you frequently are. Cross streets work. And if you want to get election mail, like a ballot or any kind of voter information guide, you can put somewhere that is your regular mailing address. So if there's a community center, for instance, where someone gets mail, they can put that as their mailing address on their registration.
Before we go to the next slide, Brittany, I'm going to have Daisy go ahead and cue it up. Daisy, you still able to? Sorry.
Yep, I'm gonna share the screen. Sorry about that, folks. Just 1 second.
Trying to keep you on your toes.
Thank you, Daisy.
Perfect.
One slide, Brittany, or are we here?
You're right there. Perfect. Great. So once you have registered, the next step is going to be casting your ballot. So today we're going to talk about vote by mail in more detail. And during our training on October 16th, we'll talk more about voting in person. But we wanted to focus on vote by mail today because vote by mail ballots are going to be hitting mailboxes in California very soon. And because this is the earliest way that you can cast your ballot in California, we really want to encourage you to cast your ballot by mail if you can, and if that's something that you feel comfortable doing. So vote by mail is also called absentee voting. It's in California, it's the same thing. In most states, it's the exact same thing. Sometimes people think that they are different, but they are literally the same in California. Vote by mail is a safe, secure, and easy process. Despite the spread of recent misinformation, including from the president, vote by mail does not have any data whatsoever attached to it related to widespread fraud. It's been used since the Civil War. In California, 67% of voters used vote by mail in the most recent election. Data says that it is not partisan, so there's no general partisan lean in favor of Democrats or Republicans when more people vote by mail. But it does improve voter turnout by a few points. So in California, about half of voters are in a county that's a Voters' Choice Act county. So if you haven't heard of that, go ahead and check out your local elections office's website to find out if you're a Voters' Choice Act county. But in those counties, people are automatically receiving a vote by mail ballot even outside of the November 2020 election. And in those counties, it seems that there's a slightly higher voter turnout when people are able to vote by mail and get one automatically. Which is great news because of COVID, all registered voters in California are going to be automatically mailed a vote by mail ballot this election. So whether you're in a Voters' Choice Act county or not, as long as you are an active registered voter, you should automatically be sent a vote by mail ballot. That's why it's important to make sure that you're registered in advance and that your registration is active. And you can still vote in person if you need to or you prefer to, as I mentioned before. Not everyone has equal access to vote by mail. Not everyone feels comfortable voting by mail, and that's okay. You still have the option to find a voting location and vote, and even vote early in person, which again, we'll talk about in more detail next time. So vote by mail ballots have to start going out by this coming Monday. If you register after Monday and before that voter registration deadline on the 19th, you should still be getting a vote by mail ballot, but the first round of ballots are going to go out by this Monday. Super exciting. And we really encourage you to check your vote by mail ballot. Someone asked in the comments, did you hear correctly that ID is not required to register to vote? That is true. You don't need an ID to register or to vote in California. However, for federal elections, you do need to confirm your identity before you can vote. And what that means is that when you register to vote, you'll be asked for your driver's license or ID number or your social security number. But And you don't have to provide those, but we strongly encourage you to if you have one, because what that will do is confirm your identity through the DMV, and then you don't have to provide any other ID after that. It also goes and fetches your signature, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So just to go back to ballot tracking, we really encourage you to sign up for Ballot Tracks, which is a system linked right there. It's run by counties in the Secretary of State's office, and it'll allow you to track your ballot round trip. You'll get a notice when your ballot goes into the mail to go to you. You'll get a notice when you send it back, when it gets picked up by USPS, when it arrives at the elections office, and then you'll also get notices if there's anything that needs to be cured with your ballot. So maybe you are missing a signature, which I'll talk about more in a minute, that you'll get notices about any of those issues if you sign up through Ballot Tracks. And it just gives you peace of mind that your ballot was received and counted. So how can you return the ballot that you're gonna be getting in the mail? You don't have to put it in the mail. If you want to, you can use regular USPS. The envelope that you'll be getting with the ballot is postage prepaid, so you don't need to add a stamp. It needs to be postmarked by election day. So we encourage you to get it in the mail before election day if you can. You can also place it in any ballot drop box in your county. Not available in all counties, so go ahead and check your county elections website to make sure that there are ballot drop boxes and to find out where they're at. Hence voting early, as Daisy said. And also you can return your completed ballot to any polling place or vote center any day that they are open. So any of those are your options for your completed ballot that you get in the mail. If you make any errors on your ballot, you can request a replacement up to about a week or two before the election, or you can go in person and request a vote by mail ballot a replacement ballot. Next page, please. Great. So how do you complete your ballot? There's a lot of stuff on there and it can be a little bit intimidating. And then what's the right process? How do you do this? So if you feel comfortable, we really encourage you to vote the whole ballot. Again, as Assemblymember Chu said, justice is on the ballot, and that's in the form of all of the different seats. So there's president, there's going to be U.S. House of Representatives. Depending on which district you're in, you could have California senators, California assembly members, or both on the ballot. You are also going to have state propositions like Prop 17 and several others. And then local candidates, so all kinds of local candidates from local boards of supervisors and city council members, district attorneys, lots of important local seats that make a huge difference to the policies that affect our everyday lives, and local propositions. So Assemblymember Chu mentioned some local propositions earlier as well. So all of those make a big difference towards creating the type of society that we want to see. So if you feel comfortable, we really encourage you to vote top to bottom. If you don't feel comfortable, you can just vote on the seats that you want. So if you just want to vote on yes on Prop 17, that's great. We encourage you to vote on whatever you feel comfortable with. So, but if you want to learn more about what's on your ballot, a great tool is votersedge.org. And this is run by one of our co-sponsoring organizations, League of Women Voters. And if you put in your address and your zip code, it'll bring up exactly what's on your individual ballot. And then you can click each of the seats and each of the candidates to learn more about what each of those seats do, what that proposition is about, what that candidate is about. And it's a really great nonpartisan resource. So once you've filled out your ballot, the next thing you need to make sure to do is to put your completed vote by mail ballot into the envelope that came with it. And you need to sign the outside of it. So sign and date your envelope before you stick it in the mail, before you return it to a drop box, or before you drop it off at a voting center. That signature is really important because it's how our system is secure in California. It's how we match the ballot with the person who with the registered voter that it's associated with. So they're going to match that signature with the one that's already in your voter registration record. Usually that's going to be the signature from the DMV. And that's because most people either registered at the DMV or they registered online, and then the system went and fetched your signature from the DMV. And that's because there just needs to be a signature associated with your file. If you registered on paper, then it's going to be probably the signature that's on your paper voter registration card. Many counties will keep all of the signatures that they have, and then they compare the signature on your envelope to the ones that are in your voter registration record. If there's an issue with your signature, either it's missing, so you forgot to sign your envelope, or your signature doesn't match, say because your signature has changed over time, or because you weren't paying attention and you just did a scribble really quickly, or anything else like that, or you've maybe had a medical condition that has affected your signature, the local elections office is required to reach out to you to give you an opportunity to cure that issue before they reject your ballot. So this is another reason that it's important to be signing up for ballot tracks, because you'll get more notices. But even if you aren't signed up for ballot tracks, you should be getting a notice about any signature issues. So just make sure to watch the mail and to watch your email once you have sent out your completed ballot. Next slide, please. Uh-oh.
I have it on my computer showing that it's on the next screen, but I think my internet went down again. Sorry about that. Hold on.
Let me see if I can do it.
Can you all see it okay?
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. So in addition to completing your own ballot, we want to encourage you to reach out to your friends and make sure that they return their ballots as well. And voting is a social activity. We've said this before in other contexts, but voting is inherently a pro-social active community. So why shouldn't completing your ballot be the same? So I know a lot of people in pre-COVID times would go to the ballots to go to the polling place together. Obviously, that's a little bit harder during COVID, but that doesn't mean that you can't engage with your friends as you're voting. So this is something that existed before COVID, but maybe should switch over to Zoom or video formatting before, but throw a ballot completion party. Sometimes those are called things like ballots and bubbles, ballots and baked goods, ballots and brunch, ballots and barbecue, whatever alliteration you want to put on it. And this is a fun way to have a party, chat with your friends, talk about what's on the ballot, use that cool Voter's Edge tool that I mentioned. And some ways that you can make that fun, make an inspiring playlist. I know that I have a playlist of resistance that I put on when I want to get pumped about doing social justice work. You can make a cool video backdrop. I think some of our speakers today have had some video backdrops, or you've seen them on previous Zoom calls, I'm sure. Also, in many counties, elections offices will be sending out an I voted sticker with their vote by mail ballot, which is a great revolution because it used to be that a lot of people would go into the ballot just to get or go into the polling place just to get their sticker. In most counties, you don't have to do that now. So you should be getting a sticker in many counties that says I voted along with your ballot. Snap a selfie with your sticker, snap a selfie of your Zoom call like we did earlier in this presentation. Throw those on social media and tag us or use the YesOn17 hashtag. You can also, as you're going through those parties, there's a few ways that you can keep track of what you're doing. You can either make your own ballot guide and share that with your friends on social media as well. You'll be getting a sample ballot from your community or from your county elections office with your voter information guide. You can use that. Or if you've already gotten your real ballot and you feel brave, you can just go right ahead and mark your official ballot during your party and then stick it in the mail at the end so you don't forget. So just some cool ideas for making sure that your ballot gets counted and making sure that your friends return their ballots this November. And with that, I will hand it over to our next speaker.
That's me. I just wanted to do some quick overview of the resources. Brittany mentioned a lot of them, but given the context, the environment that we're in now, they take on a new level of meaning and importance. So you're going to see our website, which has only existed for a few months, is loaded with resources. Maybe too much, but you know, the more the merrier in a situation like now. So I would strongly encourage you to go to YesOn17.vote. YesOn17.vote/media has a lot of really useful information. It has resources that you can share out, that you can get creative with, graphics that you can get creative with on your own. It has where we keep stuff like our yard signs that people can print. We've actually had a lot of offers of people who are doing that and trying to find places for that. That it's always, you know, up to you as an individual, but from a campaign perspective, we're ultimately just saying, be responsible, share this stuff responsibly, be good stewards and advocates. and we know you all will. Our social media is very active. You know, we're as active as any campaign out there. So definitely give us a follow. Amplifying those messages on social media is one of the lowest kind of high impact, low investment things that we really, really benefit from. So you can see on Facebook and Instagram, we are Yes on Prop 17, and on Twitter, we are Free the Vote CA. So definitely give those a follow if you haven't already, and please amplify, you know, those messages, anyone that you feel is worth it, and you know, we can use your support on everything that we do there. And then lastly, this Take Action page, again, this is where we have a lot of stuff that we're doing. It's through our website and through our Action Network portal, but these are where people can really step up and, you know, become a more formal part of the campaign. As you can see, our next activist training is a couple weeks from now. I don't know if we're 100% sure if that's going to be our last one, but it is likely going to be the last one. So if you can't make that one, or you know people who can't make that one, definitely encourage them to go to yesonprop17.vote/events to find all the past trainings, and you'll find the slides and the video from something like this. And don't hesitate to reach out to the info@yeson17.vote for just general concerns. And if you know anyone with media requests or contacts with journalists, go to media@yeson17.vote. And we definitely wanted to make a little bit of time. I know we don't have much, but to open it up for questions, you can feel free to put it in the chat. I'll happily get to them, and Daisy will help field them. Anyone who's there who can see the questions. I'm going to open it up myself so I can see what's going on. But please do. I mean, we know we get a lot of different questions, new questions that help make us better and answer, you know, common questions that might come up that we haven't heard before. So don't hesitate. I mean, I know there have already been a couple asked. I don't know if we wanted to highlight any that have been already put in there, but don't hesitate to jump in, anyone.
So it's actually a question that was just sent to me privately, but I think others will benefit from the answer. Are there any text banking or phone banking opportunities that folks can tune in? So in prior activist training sessions, we had indicated the campaign itself isn't having any phone banking or text banking sessions, but some of our coalition partners are actually hosting phone banking and text banking sessions through the month of October. So we are actually going to be announcing them on our website and also through the listserv. So for folks who have not had a chance yet to sign up for our listserv, go to our Yes on 17 website, sign up for our email list. We send out an email usually during the middle of the week, every week, and that's where we'll be announcing those opportunities. And we'll also be showing folks on our events page, directing them where they can sign up for those events. So there will now be some opportunities for folks to do that. So yeah, just happy to announce that during today's training.
Yeah, definitely. And we do have time to do the one last breakout pod. So if we wanted to do that and answer those questions, just kind of chat with each other in the smaller groups, I can open those rooms up now. What do you think? Are we ready for that?
Great.
Let's do it. Wrapping up. Anybody want to share anything in the chat or by voice? And we're also sharing this poll. We don't want to keep anyone much longer, but please let us know what you thought of today's training. Like we said, there'll be one more. If you want to invite any others, please do. That is one of the questions.
And then I also just dropped my email in the chat. This is Daisy with Initiate Justice. In my group, we were talking about some of the arguments that folks have been pushing back against Prop 17. So for folks who wanted more information on like how to push back, just email me and I can share some of those resources with you. But just really grateful for everybody who was able to join us today. Like Brett mentioned, there's a poll on the screen. Just take a quick second to fill that out. We like to use that for feedback for how to improve these training sessions. And just reminding folks that ballots will be dropping next week. So, you know, just check your registration status, register to vote, encourage folks to do that in the next coming days. And, you know, join us for our next session that's happening in 2 weeks on Friday the 16th at 1 o'clock. Bring a friend, and just very excited to have you all on board in support of the campaign.
Thanks, everyone.